Welcome to the Non-Essential Podcast. I'm Steve Gibson.
I'm Ben Matlock. Hello.
We're back. Week off for holiday festivities.
Yeah, and I think it went poorly for me because I ate a lot, and now my chair is like sinking on its own.
Yeah, welcome to my world. I've been dealing with that for years.
And you tell yourself it's probably just a bad, hydraulic canister in there, and you got to replace it. But I know it was the gravy.
Yeah, I was gonna say my blood gravy level. It's like blood alcohol level. I'm still like 4 times over the legal limit
to live.
Yeah.
You're legally not allowed to have a kid, honestly. Until the ratio is like 60% man to 40% gravy.
Sir, you're sweating lard. Like, we're going to have to ask you to step over here.
Okay, gravy's coming out of your eyes, sir. You need to whatever. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, hey, it's just our job to point out the infraction. We don't know what the punishments are. I'm trailing off here. And there's no saving it. Usually we can kind of riff. Take 1 week off to just eat. It's a really fucking bad idea. Yeah, because that's all my body wants to do now.
It's like the bare minimum is required to do this show, and now we can't do it. We are somehow knocked out of shape.
Yeah.
So forgive us, but this is the Non-Essential Podcast. Half of it. Between the two of us, we make half a show now. But yeah, on the show, we tell each other stories, or at least we fucking used to. And
yeah, who knows? It was so long ago since we recorded our last episode. I'm not sure.
Half the time, I only remember what we talked about with football after the show. So
we'll do that 1 week. We'll forget what we've done that before, where we spend the first 20 minutes talking about sports or something. It's like, hey, yeah, we're the sports guy. Wait, no, we're not.
Well, I'm gonna, and I'll just be like, I won't even know what the fuck to name the episodes on the raw files anymore, so it'll just be shit like, yeah, Baker Mayfield's done, and, so yeah,
I would, as a Browns fan, I would like to say, hey, but no, yeah.
Like I said, it's based off our conversations, so it would be only stuff we would agree on, which is that sports have not been good to us this year, so.
Or any year, yeah. Oh. So, I was working really hard to bring like some kind of historical topic or crime topic, and then I was like, that's way too fucking hard. I'm exhausted. It's been a week after I actually had 2 short weeks at work, because the week before Thanksgiving we took a Friday off. It was like the first vacation day I've taken for like an actual like fun vacation-y thing in probably 10 years. So, but that made that a short week, and then Thanksgiving week's the greatest week of the year for me, working 9 to 5 at an office job, because it's always on a Thursday, but we get the Black Friday off too. So that's an extremely short week. And then the problem is, like, all the work doesn't go away. So when you get back, not only do you have to work a full week after getting like a 4-day weekend, but I've been doing like about 3 days worth of work every day this week.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's me just
and you're just not. You get mentally, a glimpse of like what our society should be, which is just a bunch of people working 3 days a week.
Right?
Like, that's totally how it should be. And when you think about what actually gets done, there's no reason why that couldn't be the system. Like, how productive am I in a given week? Probably about 3 days worth. And then,
especially when I only have 3 days, because I can motivate myself. Then it's like, yeah, fuck, I'll rock this stuff, because I get 4 days off.
Forbid overtime and really watch me like get shit done, because I'll be like, oh fuck, I'm running out of time.
Right. But anyway, that was really my long long way of saying I've got a creepypasta.
Yeah, I mean, how many times do I throw that out a year?
I have I could either do this creepypasta or the 2.5 paragraphs of my other topic that I actually got out and before my brain was like, yeah, no, I can't do this.
No, the only time I'm ever like, oh shit, a creepypasta is times like now where it's like, well, I'm really tired. I really don't want my blood pressure to start to go up.
This one, it will be interesting
because pisses me off.
I read through the whole one. I usually don't. We've talked about that a lot of times when we pick these. We'll find one that's just either the title catches us, and I'll usually read the first paragraph or two just to see if the writing style seems not good. That's not necessarily what we're looking for, but entertaining. And then if I decide this sounds like something that'll be good, I go with it, and it always fucking comes back to bite me in the ass. I am so bad at picking these blindly. This one I read all the way through, and I really like it. So it'll be interesting to see your take on it. But this one is called The Price of Sugar. And my notes kind of failed me right before the show. I had to quickly recopy and paste, and it didn't pick up I don't think I picked up the author's name. Let me scroll down here real quick. No, it didn't. So I'm sorry. There is an author name, and I'll cite it in the on the podcast description. It's not an anonymous one like a lot of ours are, but I don't know it right now because my laptop's being fickle.
I'll look it up. Well, you said it was called The Price of Sugar.
Yeah, and it's on, of course, this one site that we use for these.
Well, The Price of Sugar is like a concrete thing. You can just look that up. The dude didn't need to write a story.
It's I think it's up to $1.89 a pound or something.
It's about $20.
The Price of Sugar by $3.79. Black Friday sale. That'd be a weird Black Friday sale. It's just a bag of sugar.
That's all you get for fucking Christmas.
Our TVs are full price, but you can get a half-price bag of sugar. Come on down to Al's Sugar Barn.
Why the fuck did Grandpa give me a bag of sugar for Christmas?
It was on sale, Sonny.
He says it's because he's losing it, but I think he really hates me. Okay, this is by a user named. This is a weird name. Cymarel Melnybone.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say is I didn't copy it for me, but I knew I wasn't going to be able to say it out loud because it was, and I tried, I practiced it when I was doing it.
It was I would have gone with the Pokemon, Cyndaquil and Cubone.
I can't tell if it's a real name or an online name or an amalgamation of both, but
it's a
anyway, so the price of
creepypasta name.
Yeah. Price of Sugar. When I was a little girl, if you asked me what I wanted to be, the starving artist wouldn't have been on that list. Most likely, I would have told you a dinosaur or an astronaut. And later, when I realized that children couldn't become dinosaurs and brown girls from New Zealand couldn't become astronauts,
that's a quitter
I would have said a teacher. I know.
I wonder you didn't make it as a T-Rex.
I read that line and I was at first I was oh, don't say that. And then I was it sucks, but that's probably a pretty realist mentality for this little girl to have because our society sucks.
Yeah, I would say it's more likely to become a dinosaur than for a brown person to get actual opportunity. And I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because it's the sad fucking state of society.
Right. At school, I got progressively worse at every subject but English and art. But in my teens, my auntie got me a part-time job as a cleaner at the local hospital.
Clean up the dead bodies?
It's
a mob cleaner?
No, it's when you have those cases of malpractice that could get your hospital sued, you make those go away.
By killing the people who would sue you.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
She's a John Wick character.
Their survivors would be pissed if there were any survivors. Yeah. I'm the cleaner. Welcome to the price of sugar. Pop, pop. Oh.
No, her name is her code name Sugar.
Sugar,
and it's a price to hire her, and if you fuck her over, that price goes up, and that's how the trailer goes.
You paid the price, Sugar. Oh,
so Merle, you should have hired us to write your screenplay. We already know where this is going.
We're two white guys, so Hollywood would pick it up with no questions asked. They'd be like, yeah, you guys got to know what you're talking about. I thought at the time that the money wasn't too awful, and I was good at it. I enjoyed cleaning, and even if sometimes what I was cleaning was explosive diarrhea or blood-laced vomit.
I even enjoy that. What the
Those
fuck?
were my favorite days. After a while, you get used to the smells. Well, except for Clostridium difficile, otherwise known as C. diff. But thankfully, I rarely had to clean up after one of those patients. I have no idea what that is, and I didn't look it up.
I've actually learned a lot about C. diff in my job I started a few months ago. It's fucking bad. It's shitty. It's gross.
Yeah.
And I'll leave it at that.
Okay. So, yeah, it did sound like a line to me that comes from personal experience. Eventually, my minimum wage salary let me quit school and rent a tiny, grimy, one-bedroom place in a block of concrete flats. When I wasn't working or sleeping, I made art to sell down at the markets on Saturday morning. And so, I became a poor part-time artist.
I will say of this writer... I'm going to assume it's a she, and that she's kind of writing.
Yeah, I mean the character,
but it could, but there's no guarantee of that. But if they're not this person, they're doing a pretty good job of making me believe that this is a real person, and this is like a real setup.
That was one of the things that I liked about. Like I said, I liked the story, and kind of spoiler alert, I liked it all the way through the end. I thought it was good, and then I thought that might be an interesting take on one of these, where you get to the end and say, okay, well, what do we have on one that's not ridiculous? But anyway, there are certain staples every poor person needs in their cupboards. Potatoes and rice were mine. Both were dirt cheap and could be made into a variety of dishes. Growing up with equally poor parents,
rice and potatoes,
rice potatoes. You can squish up the rice into a little ball that looks like a potato.
Potatoes.
It's like Bubba from Forrest Gump. Growing up with equally poor parents and strictly enforced gender roles meant that my mom had taught me early on how to cook dishes that would stretch for several meals. Rice is great, she had said. You can have it sweet for breakfast and you can have it plain for lunch and dinner. So
And
two ways.
will.
She taught you two ways to eat it, sweet and plain. And cabbage. Everything seemed to have cabbage in it.
Well,
but I still had my little
miracle
luxuries
plant.
in my tiny flat. I like cabbage, but I think if you ate it with every meal, I'd have some gastrointestinal distress. We'll put it that way. I still had my luxuries in my tiny flat, a jar of peanut butter, some wild Manuka honeycomb from my uncle up north, and a big jar of raw sugar for my cups of tea. You'll understand then why I was upset when ants started coming inside. You don't even need to qualify that. This is why I like this story. You probably remember. I think this is going back.
You're mad. You're a sugar owner.
I don't know.
See, I thought you would love ants.
This goes back, I think, to our joystick days. We used to get ants at our old house real bad, and they drove me fucking nuts because it wasn't like there was like food and stuff left out. They just liked my house, and I hated them. Yeah. To the point where I think at one point, I was running around my house with a lighter, just like burning them alive, kind of laughing maniacally, like I might burn the whole fucking place down, but at least these ants are coming with me, which they wouldn't. I would die in the fire.
You would have killed 2 out of like 2 trillion ants.
Yeah, the fire department would get there. They'd find my dead body, charred remains, and they'd be like, man, a lot of ants on that corpse. I'd be like, my ghost is up there going, fuck. But that's why I liked the story to begin with, is I understand having a...
The ants are fucking annoying. I got a lot of them this summer. It was the first time they've really like come into my room like this. And I had to basically line an entire wall with those traps that like they go in, take some poisoned food and bring it back to their shit. And I had to like wall off a fucking part of my room with them. And then my dipshit cat wanted to eat it. So that was more fucking headaches.
Yeah, I was always worried about that with their dogs. And then you have a toddler, and that's even worse.
And then the kid wants to eat them. And then you kind of want to eat them because you're a little curious. You know?
And I don't know, like I hated ants at our other house. I still hate ants. We get them a little bit at this house, especially around the stupid bird cage, because all the seed and stuff. But I put those traps out, and usually within a couple days they're gone. But we get earwigs at this house, which are way fucking creepier. I don't know if you're familiar with the pincher bugs are called. Yeah. Those are gross. And like
I had a horror moment with earwigs where one time I don't remember where I was. I don't know if it was at an old house I lived in or I was at a friend's house or something, but I had to go to the bathroom and I sat down, I did my business, and when I stood up, there were earwigs in the bowl, and it was that horrifying moment of like, were they always there or did that come out of me? Yeah.
And neither answer is good.
Yeah, it's all shit. Like
one's just worse than the other. But yeah, so yeah, I don't know now how my opinion of ants are. I think I still hate them with the passion of like a flamethrower. But earwigs are even worse. So next week I'll bring you the story of the earwig, or 2 weeks from now. Anyway, you'll understand why I was upset when ants started coming inside. They were really small things, some of the smallest ants I'd ever seen. When I got up in the morning, they'd be swarmed around the tiniest crumb of dropped food, dividing it up and carrying it back to their nest in a steady brown-black pilgrimage of little bodies.
I like that sentence. It makes it seem almost like a Disney thing.
Hi-ho. I didn't begrudge them at first. I don't know why. I begrudge them instantly. The second I see an ant, I fly into a rage. I knew what it was like to be hungry, and I could appreciate more than most people that they were cleaning up my mess, doing me a service. No, that's not what they're doing.
I understand that you're desperate, but that's why, so am I, and that's why I lay those traps. That's why it's warfare.
But when they ate a hole clean through the paper of my spare bag of raw sugar, I decided I had had enough. That's where you draw the line. No, you can have my crumbs, but no sugar for you.
I don't know if I've ever seen an ant like eat through shit. I've only like they can get into a bag of sugar, like no matter how well you seal it. But
yeah, that's the thing with ants. They don't need to eat through stuff because I think that they pass through solid objects. Like if they want something, through. Right?
No, they're just tedious bastards, and they'll take as long as it takes to crawl around.
That's true. You could like roll the end of a bag up like 37 times. It takes them a week and a half to like navigate the spiral to get into the bag, and they'll do it. Yeah. Like
and be like, "Hey, this is great sugar. It was worth the price of admission."
Fairness, like what better do they have to do? Like they don't have a whole lot going on in their lives.
It's like, literally food. Like find food, bring food.
Yeah,
and I don't know, piss Ben off.
Borax and sugar, I discovered, was a good homemade ant killer. We had plenty of borax-based cleaning products at work for cleaning drains and dissolving really stubborn filth. So I mixed up a solution, as the internet instructed me, then left it in a saucer on the kitchen bench. It didn't take long for my tiny unwelcome guest to find it. An hour later, a pair of ants ambled across the clean white formica and found the saucer. According to my research, they would feed on it, then carry it back to the nest where others would join the chain until the poison had filled their home. All going well, they would be dead within a week, and I wouldn't have my bug problem anymore. Which is exactly how you need to face the ant menace.
Yeah.
It's like
terrorism, essentially.
Yeah.
You send in an inside fucking bomber, basically, to their whole colony.
Infiltrate and destroy.
Mm-hmm. Name one ant Solid Snake.
He'll turn on the rest.
Snake, this is a sneaking mission. No, you're walking right into him, you fucking idiot.
You take one wrong step, though. Snake. So when one ant supped on the poison and settled down on the edge of the saucer beside the companion, I wondered if I'd mixed it too strong and killed the ant outright. But continued observation showed it was still alive, grooming its antennae and legs, patiently waiting under the apparent supervision of its friend. So I just, criticize the ants, saying, they don't have anything better to do, but neither does this character. When I put my ant poison out, I put it out and then go about my day. They're like, I'm gonna watch this whole process from start to finish.
Well, she sets it up that she's poor. So
yeah, that's true.
I'm imagining, there's not a TV or some shit, so it's like, yeah, let's see how this ant reacts. What scares me is that instead of doing what ants do, this ant's just having a little stare down with you. And it's like, I might have made this ant very strong.
Right. Using the opportunity to study a rarely quintessential quiscient ants. I almost said quintessential ant, which is an actual word, but not the right word, and it would be the dumbest sentence. It's like this actual ant. I don't know. Quiescent. Yeah, there you go. I think I've heard that word too. I'm
just saying sounds until it sounds like an actual word to me.
Right. And that sounds right to me. See, we're adjacent to intelligent. We're not intelligent. We're adjacent to it. I took out my sketchbook and started drawing them while I perched on the sole chair in my flat. By the time I was yawning and craving my bed, the two ants were still sitting patiently on the edge of the saucer. In the morning, when I emerged for a cup of tea after my shower, the saucer remained untouched, only the body of the poisoned ant remaining, its little legs curled up against its body in a strangely fetal death pose. My attempt to poison the nest had failed. But you got that one fucker. That'll teach him. The next week, they ripped another hole in the sugar bag, which I'd placed inside a plastic bag, and emptied half of the contents. Oh, and emptied half of the contents. Yeah, she didn't empty it, half the ants did. Incensed, as she should be, I hung the bag from a hook in the laundry roof. The next morning, the empty bag lay forlornly on the floor, not a single grain of sugar remaining. Fucking ants. Frustrated, I went out and bought some proper ant bait from the supermarket, along with another bag of sugar. When I got home, I placed the bait on the floor of the pantry and the sugar bag in a bowl, which was in turn placed in a larger bowl full of water. So, drown your sugar, that'll keep the ants out. The family of sugar thieves was about to get their comeuppance. I slept fitfully, the bedroom door wide open, irrationally listening for the sounds of tiny intruders. Some part of me was convinced that they were conspiring against me. I had fragmented dreams of oversized ants crawling through my cupboards, chewing holes through glass and plastic, eating all the food they could find. Eventually I got up, unable to sleep, and stumbled to the kitchen for a glass of water. As the light flickered on, I saw movement. The sugar bag had been removed from the bowl and lay sideways on the bench. Ants scattered madly across the counter, scurrying away to any crack or cranny they could find, their mouths no doubt full of my sugar. Thinking quickly, I grabbed a glass from the sink and placed it over the top of one of the trailing ants who had just emerged from the nearby empty bag. I like that, thinking quickly. It's what can I do? Aha, I'll take a prisoner. I'd caught one of the little thieves. It was definitely watching me. Wherever I went, it positioned itself so that it had a clear view of me through the glass. If I came close, it looked at me. Or if I looked at it, the ant would rear up on its legs and tap the glass with its one good antenna. The other one had been bent by the glass coming down on it. I'm not letting you go, I told it. Not until you stop thieving my sugar. Tap, tap, tap. I realized that it was much, much bigger than the ants that had first come into the house. This one was glossy and dark, as though freshly polished with boot black. The enlarged features lent its face an anthropomorphic qualities that made me uncomfortable keeping it in a glass prison. I could kill you, you know, I continued. But I'm not going to. I'll make you a deal. I'll put a little bowl of clean sugar outside the front door at night, and you can eat that. Just leave my stuff alone.
Say, can't do that. You're negotiating.
I know.
Now you're on the hook.
It was the first of many, many mistakes. The ant stared at me through the glass. Okay. Tap, tap, tap. With a sigh, I lifted the glass. The ant's good antenna wiggled furiously for a second, then it industriously trundled away and disappeared into the crack between the stove and the bench. Whether it had truly understood me, I don't know. Probably not, it's an ant. But the outside feeding bowl was working. At night, the ants would crowd around the bowl, then chain gang the entire contents back to their nest. As though satisfied with this arrangement, they left my kitchen alone. I laughed at the whole idea. It was like a tiny insectoid mafia racket. So long as I gave them their cut of sugar on the regular, they left me alone. So yeah, she's paying protection to a colony of ants.
Yeah.
But even though I was happy enough with the deal, someone else wasn't. My neighbor Charles.
Of course.
An older gentleman. Anybody named Charles is trouble.
Not even the name, it's just a neighbor. It's always a fucking neighbor.
Fucking neighbor.
Why don't you just fuck off and mind your business? This is my fucking ant mafia racket, okay?
Right. It has nothing to do with you,
How about you
Charles.
mind your own fucking business, or I'll send them to your house, you piece of shit. Sorry.
You'll really like this guy in a minute, but he's an older gentleman of European heritage. Charles didn't have much time for people like me. If I had my cheap portable stereo up too loud, he would hammer on my door with his walking stick.
He's a racist.
Yeah, he's very racist. He'd hammer on my door with a walking stick until I turned it down. I couldn't even watch TV at a decent volume, so instead I just watched pirated movies on my crappy phone with headphones in. The commotion outside definitely included the strident, petulant voice of Charles yelling about something. Probably should have been a commotion, because the commotion... It's like, I don't know what you're talking about. You haven't introduced the commotion yet. So, nitpicky. Opening the door, I found him on my doorstep, a smashed sugar bowl kicked halfway down the concrete path, and the squashed bodies of fat ants strewn about my threadbare doormat. "You stupid darky," he roared. "You bloody ignorant savage." Evening, Charles.
That's the thing about racists. They jump to, like, fucking 10 on their volume knob for no reason.
And I like how she just responded, "Evening, Charles."
Evening, Charles.
That shows like
Hate
my
anyone
privilege
today?
What the hell are you doing feeding ants, you stupid woman? So he's, racist and sexist. Not a shocker. They tend to go hand in hand. Keeps them out of the house, I started explaining, but he cut me off. "I'll tell the ruddy landlord about this. He'll have your guts for garters. You'll be evicted by the end of the week. You mark my words."
Are we renting rooms on a pirate ship? What the fuck is that?
I loved that phrase, guts for garters, though, because it's such a ridiculous old person phrase, and that's how I'm picturing this neighbor.
Like Pirates of the Caribbean line.
Well, maybe that's the only movie that Charles could watch. That's why he's in such a bad mood.
Because it's biographical to his life when, he had both legs.
"Good night, Charles," I said, smiling tightly and closing the door in his face. He ranted for a while after that, then fell silent, heading back to his flat. In the morning, all the bodies of the ants were gone, and a completely repaired sugar bowl sat neatly on my doormat. I didn't hear anything from the landlord, nor from Charles. I didn't dare feed the ants again for fear of causing more trouble. Don't let one ignorant asshole, keep you from your ant buddies.
I would just, leave a little fucking note for the ants, hey, this guy doesn't want you to have sugar.
Yeah, go talk to him.
Do with that information what you will.
Almost 3 weeks after the incident, a lone fat ant wended its way across the kitchen bench and sat beside my cup of tea.
Wheezing because you fed it too much.
I've got diabetes. Our whole colony does. Good job.
Just a winded fat ant.
You look at it, you say, there was one step outside my house. He's like, I know, it was a big one. With its one good antenna, it touched the surface of my cup. Tap, tap, tap. Then it ambled away, unconcernedly, and disappeared down the crack it had crawled from. That night I left a bowl of sugar outside, and in the morning there was a surprise for me. Sitting in the empty bowl was a beautiful creamy white pendant. I had tried my hand at bone carving, but despite my artistic talents, I'd never been very good at it. Whoever had made this piece was a true artist. It was a flawless double spiral, covered in tiny, intricately etched whorls and patterns, much like the ones worn by my ancestors. And every morning after that one, a new bone carving appeared, just as beautiful and cunningly crafted as the last. They sell well at the market, the pendants, well enough to keep my little friends in sugar for a lifetime. The police never found out what happened to Charles. They say that forensics could find nothing, no sign of forced entry, no signs of a struggle. It was as if the old man had simply disappeared. The new neighbor turned up on Saturday, a sour-faced old woman. On the very first night, she bashed on the wall and yelled obscenities when I turned on my TV. I can't wait to take her to market. The end. So, the moral of the story is entering into like a sugar pact with a bunch of like ants is good because your enemies will
die and become profitable works of art.
Right. Now you're no longer a starving artist. You got all the sugar you can eat.
I liked that one, but that was a huge jump from these ants are kind of aware to their master bone carvers.
Bone carvers.
Yeah.
The one thing that, and when I first read it, I'm like, that was a really neat, like, kind of twist. And I liked it. Mostly I liked it because it started as a feud between a human and an ant, or a colony of ants. Like I said, I identify with that.
Which is neighbors.
But that's what it afterwards I was thinking about it, and that's generally a sign of a decent story when you're still like think about it a little bit after finishing it. And it's like, wait a minute. She literally like tried to poison the entire colony, and they're like, nice try. And the other guy's like, hey, I'm a racist, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna fucking eat you and like carve up your bones. Which, in fairness, is an appropriate punishment for racists. But it's funny to me that they spared her. They're like, yeah, kill us, try to kill us all you want. Just don't be,
Yeah. Well, I don't, just nothing about those ants except the fact that, like, they didn't die from borax and they were kind of fat by the end. It's like, I feel like if you get carried away by ants, that's on you.
Yeah. True. Although I feel like I've been on the verge, some of my, like, if you've ever upset a anthill outside, like one of the, like their whole underground fortresses, we've got one at the new house, but it's way back in the back of the yard, so it's not by my house. But it bumps up enough that, like, my mower will sometimes hit it, and the amount of little fuckers that come swarming out of that, like, yeah, I could see if you tried to take a nap and all of them decided to attack at once, you might be screwed before you know what's going on. Although they're not sentient, because I've tried to, even though that they're away from my house, there's way too many of them, so I've tried to poison them. Normally in nature, I've like live and let live attitude, but that only goes so far.
Yeah.
Same with wasp nests. I don't like wasp nests in my shit, so they tend to get dealt with.
Yeah, I wouldn't be leaving fucking sugar out. If you're capable of making like bones and shit, I would tell the ants like you can go get sugar now. You are now functional enough that you don't need me to supply this for you. Like, I don't know why they have to, like, keep bugging you for shit. It's like, just go buy some.
And the implication was, like, she didn't see him. They didn't come into her kitchen to seek food, and she didn't feed him for, like, 3 weeks. So the implication there to me was that they were feeding on the body of Charles. So if they can feed on the bodies of humans, why do they need the sugar for? It sounds like they can just take and eat whatever the hell they want.
Yeah. Well, sure.
Like,
well, it's the same thing with people. I mean, we could eat a ton of shit, but what do we all eat in America? Fucking sugar.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
That's true.
Because we and these ants agree. It's what moms choose for their kids.
So maybe this whole thing's a metaphor for drugs. Like, she's really a dealer, and the sugar is really meth, and the ants are really just like high school kids
who kill your neighbor for you
for more meth. Yeah, because they want more meth,
and you want your neighbor dead.
Well, the neighbor's risking your supply of meth, so yeah, they're going to take him out.
But you're not selling the meth, like.
Yeah, that's true. You're just
well, I guess it could be like how the CIA or whatever introduced crack. It's like just introduce it, and then people will get hooked.
See what happens,
and then it'll be a business once they need it.
Oh shit! I just realized I read this whole thing wrong. It was spelled ants, like your mom's sister. It was a whole colony of aunts. That'd be something. That's
definitely a joke. I thought you were gonna say it's like the Woody Allen ants with a Z.
Oh God! Wouldn't that be the worst way to die? To get eaten alive by Woody Allen, like as an ant, as a cartoon ant.
You tried to take my sugar. You crazy? You know, the only thing worse than that impression is that movie. So
it is terrible. We went to an ice cream place over the summer that sell those. I guess it's like one of the new popular trends, but there's one in our city where they sell those like fucking milkshakes that weigh like 80 pounds. Like, it's a milkshake, but then they impale on a stick on the top like a whole like stack of Oreos and maybe some like I don't know.
It's just. You said it's a milkshake?
Yeah.
What's wrong with milkshakes?
Well, the milkshake's fine, but it's got like 40 pounds of... It's basically that same thing as, the trend that started years ago with Bloody Marys, where it's like, oh, it's a Bloody Mary, but it's garnished with 4 hamburgers and some chicken wings. And it's like, what?
Well, that was an improvement.
Well, yeah.
Bloody Marys are kind of...
They're gross. Just give me the hamburgers and chicken wings. That's my point. But that's the same deal with these, like, they're milkshakes.
But you'll need to wash it down with anything.
But anyway, we went to this ice cream place, and while we were waiting for them to make it, that movie was on their lone TV, and it was awful. It was awful.
Yeah, I watched it a lot growing up. I was a little kid when it came out, and I didn't like it at the time, but when you're a kid, you just sort of watch the same 10 VHSs.
Yeah.
Over and over.
And I remember Ants and A Bug's Life came out at almost the same time, and I didn't love either of them, but The Bug's Life was a little bit better.
It was pretty weak. Like, honestly, they both kind of sucked.
Yeah. Like I said, it's like a contest that doesn't really matter who wins because they're like neither of them.
Like A Bug's Life got like a little more play because it was Pixar, but they're fucking pests. It's movies about pests. And like,
right.
And bugs having like fucking military conflicts and shit. And it's like, whatever happened to, toys scaring the shit out of your neighbor, huh?
Yeah, and attempting to murder one because you think he's moving in on your girl toy.
Stuff that little kids could relate to.
Back when movies were good.
Back when movies were good and men were men and it was time to fight. And I don't know what I'm talking about. The show is at 40 minutes and that means it's over. Fuck it.
Yeah, that's good for me because I I was literally half asleep on the floor in my daughter's room, putting her to bed like 10 minutes before the start of.
I don't know how you could be a parent, because like I would fall for so many of those traps. Like, okay, I got to put the kid to bed, and then I fall asleep. You know, I oversleep. I wake up. I rush to work. The kid has switched places with me and is now doing my whole job. And
He is way more successful than I ever was.
Yeah. And they're like, actually, we don't need you anymore. And he's like, get the fuck out of here, old man.
I'm putting you in an old folks home. You're like, I'm 32 years old.
I'm only 17. Okay, yeah.
Anyway.
Thanks for listening. Fuck, this was a low energy episode.
We've had worse, but we've had better. So that's what I aim for, is to be in the middle.
Yeah.
Just
a very lukewarm show. You're welcome. Just like those Thanksgiving leftovers. Thanks. Have a good week.
Toodles.